Welcome to a new episode of PostPhDirections. In this episode, I'm excited to welcome Fernando Gomez-Baquero, Director of the Runway Startup Postdoc Program at Cornell Tech. Fernando, who holds a PhD himself, leads a groundbreaking initiative designed to help recent PhDs transition from academia to entrepreneurship. The program supports PhD researchers with ideas in the digital technology space, equipping them with mentorship, funding, and the tools needed to transform their academic expertise into thriving startups. And I had the privilege to meet Fernando online about a month ago. And when I learned about the incredible work he's doing with his team, I was immediately inspired, and I knew I had to invite him to talk about the program. As a PhD who transitioned into entrepreneurship myself, I love the innovative approach Cornell Tech takes to empower researchers to turn their ideas into impactful startups. And I would also like to announce right away from the start that they have a call open for applications, and the deadline is the 15th of February. And I will put more info in the show notes. I will put the link so you guys can just, directly apply for it if this is interesting. And now I'm really excited to get the opportunity to chat with you. Welcome, Fernando.
Thank you so much, Elena. Thank you for having me. It's fantastic to be here with you on this opportunity to discuss our program, discuss the journey of a PhD to being an entrepreneur and all of the craziness that comes with it. And I'm very happy that this is being seen by a lot of people that are maybe just thinking right now, well, what do I do? I'm about to finish my PhD or early in that part of my career. And I came here because I was like you at some point in time, not knowing what the next step was. And I love that we have an opportunity for a next step, but also just to share my knowledge and my experiences.
Absolutely. And, I think it's like why I also love having you is because I do feel as an entrepreneur myself, this path is so underrepresented, but I do think PhDs are so well suited to take the path to become an entrepreneur because, as in a PhD, you wear all these different hats. And now being an entrepreneur myself, I know it's the same when you build a business, and it's actually a lot of fun. And I'm really looking forward discussing aspects of the program, but also your own journey. And I would say let's start with a little bit about your background, because this podcast, of course, is all about PhDs who made the transition. And since you hold a PhD yourself, I would be very interested. Can you tell us in a few sentences about your journey? How did you come to where you are today?
Yes, so I'm originally from Colombia. I was born and raised in Colombia. Had no idea what to study when I was when I left school, as many people do. But I ended up studying engineering because it was the thing that people were studying. I ended up studying industrial engineer operations research, which was interesting. It was a lot of focus on finance. I hated finance. I really liked optimization and I liked algorithms. And it's kind of beautiful to see that has come back to become a little bit of AI. But I was always interested in nanotechnology. And the reason for that was because my mother was a chemist. She was a researcher. She found a couple of books on nanotechnology and she was fascinated and then gave them to me. I perhaps understood 1% of the book, not more than that. And I was also hooked. I thought it was super interesting. So after many years of being in Colombia and doing a corporate career, I was working at Pepsi, which is a very interesting company. I told myself, I need to figure out if this nanotechnology thing is a thing for me. And if I really need to give it space. And that's where I decided to do a PhD, applied to a few programs in the United States, moved to the United States at 27, and just started to do a PhD in nanomaterials. I was very lucky to find a great group and a great place in Albany, New York. There's a big semiconductor research center, nanotechnology research center over there. It was just getting started. I was there when the whole thing was growing. And after that, after my PhD, or while during my PhD, we started to think about where to apply these interesting ideas that we were developing. In my case, was about nanowires, silicon nanowires. And we found a great fit with batteries. And this is one of those things that it kind of clicks and then you just continue with it, not really knowing why, but it got funded, I got grants, it made a lot of sense, it made batteries better. So we just continued that journey. And I eventually, after I transitioned for my PhD, became the CEO of that company as an international. So that's something that I want to discuss because a lot of people think you can't do it as an international in the US. You can't really build a company. That's not true at all. There's some rules. So I went through that process, built a company, and at some point in time, I couldn't really raise the money that I needed for the rest of the company, and that company got sold. So it wasn't a bad thing, but at the same time, there's a lot of guilt that comes with not taking it all the way there. And I was having that exit. I came to Cornell Tech to help other entrepreneurs, particularly PhDs, build their own companies. And I've been here 7 years. It's going to be almost 8 years now.
I love that. It's really, so how did it feel for you when you did build your own startup? Did you feel like you were lacking a little bit of support, or how was it? Is this one of the reasons why you decided to support other PhDs in their journey or transition? Or how did the landscape or the ecosystem look like back then?
Well, first of all, I had no idea what I was doing. No idea. You can say I built companies here and there. No, this is a completely different ball game. And I had built a couple of companies in Colombia trying to get some of this stuff started. But once you come here, it's a completely different thing. And back then, there was a little bit of an ecosystem. There were some people that were mentors and guiders. There's some of those actually I still talk to, which are fantastic people, but there wasn't a very strong ecosystem, and the university didn't really know how to handle entrepreneurial projects, and that was very painful. So big part of why I'm in this program and I'm helping people is so that we don't have to go through that same pain that I went way back then when I was trying to do it.
Amazing, and it really resonates with me when I think back, when I started thinking about building my own company. I was really in that space where I was like, I don't really know where to look for help. So I think it's amazing what you're doing. And I would really like to talk a little bit more about the program. So what is the program, and how would you say does it differ from a normal startup accelerator or incubator that are out?
I want to touch on that point that you just made too, is sometimes there is an ecosystem, but we don't know it. We don't know that it's there, and we have no way of finding it. And even if we wanted to, there's no way of doing it. That's an important component of this too. About our program really is based in the idea that PhDs nowadays are a very different breed than what I think the traditional PhD was before, in the sense that they are a lot more open to different career opportunities, a lot more open to exploring, taking a technology and really going all the way there. They see entrepreneurs out there. They see engineers that became really important people. They see scientists that became really important people. There's a different representation, no longer neither the lab rat nor the professor at the university necessarily. There are some that do want that, but that's not necessarily the case. And what happens with these PhDs is that universities are falling short for them. They are not giving them neither the resources, nor the training, nor the capacity to explore the things that they want to explore. They don't only want to be trained as professors. They want to be trained as professors. They want to be trained as industry engineers and scientists. They want to be trained as entrepreneurs. And then they want to make a decision. And in our program, what we want to do is exactly that, is give the opportunity for someone to explore all of those things, particularly on the entrepreneurial side, right? It's telling them, play the role of the CEO of the entrepreneur for 2 years, but you won't play it alone. You play it with resources, with connections, with mentoring, with guidance, with curriculum, with all of these things. And in doing that, you understand now what it means to be an entrepreneur. You understand what it means to be in industry too, because now you're going to play a lot with making connections with industry, and you will continue to do great research. So you will not leave that academic side behind. And if you do those three, I think we can make you a better professional. And I often say the program is taking a scientist into entrepreneur, but in reality, it's taking a scientist and putting that person in a point where they can see all of the paths. I just want you to see all of the paths and then make a decision. And whatever decision you make is absolutely fine with us.
I think that's great. And I just to your previous comment, I totally agree. Sometimes it's the ecosystem is there. We just simply don't know about it. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges an academic has when they want to move into entrepreneurship is the lack of network. You have never been exposed. So I didn't know anyone at the time when I moved, and I really had to build the network. And so I think it's amazing that people now can go somewhere like to Cornell Tech, to the Runway Startup program, and really try an idea in, I would say, in a very kind of safe environment where you can
Yes.
test and see, is it for you without taking this big risk. And when I heard about the program for the first time, it was just so amazing, because what I always think is, especially when you do a PhD, you're always on the forefront of creating new knowledge. A lot of us, they create this knowledge, but they never take it any further. And I think it really is because we lack the knowledge how to take it a step further. And I think you provide a space where someone can actually safely explore and see, is this for me? But also take something from the lab and potentially commercialize it and actually take the impact beyond the paper and make it and transform it into real world impacts.
That and I would have loved to have this, and I think you did too, right? So in our first conversation, we said this: would have loved to have this when I was trying to build my own company. Would have loved to have the support. Would have loved to have the system. Would have loved to have the funding. Because this comes with funding. This comes with immigration paperwork. I would have loved to have this. It would have been so enriching to have all of this ecosystem. I'm not mad the way that it happened. It happened, and I learned a ton. But what I do think is people don't have to go through that. And the reason why I do this, the reason why I'm at this job, is because I have a lot of empathy for what a scientist goes through during this journey. And I think that you should understand that journey. You should understand how difficult it is. You should understand the pressure, the uncertainty, the drive, the motivation, all of those things. And that's really what attracts me to be the director of this program, is seeing that I can guide all of these other people through this journey. And the outcome is always a better person. That's the outcome. And it's a better scientist because we came and we tried, right? In a very structured way.
I love what you just said. The outcome is a better person. I was biking today and I was thinking about, failing. What does failure mean? We talk a lot about it. And I really do believe that failure is part of the process wherever you want to go. It's like when you do a PhD, you try an experiment, the experiment fails. So you learn from it and you try again. But it's really part of growth. And just as you said, at the end of the day, it's all about you learn something, right?
And there is a method to it. So it's great that you're saying that, Elena, because that is, I think, a great point. Scientists, PhDs, we usually think that the entrepreneur is this magical figure. This magical figure that appears out of nowhere, all of a sudden has brains that came from this absolutely magical place. It's not. Entrepreneurship, there's a method to it. And yeah, some people have more capacity to talk to other people and maybe sell, but that doesn't mean that you cannot be a good entrepreneur if you're introverted. That doesn't mean that you're not a good entrepreneur if you are more methodical and rational. There is a method to become an entrepreneur. We do it all the time. And it works. It is. Don't think about entrepreneurship as that magical thing that I either have it or don't have it. It's a thing that can be learned. Absolutely, for sure.
I think it's great. It's great that you said it. Before I became an entrepreneur, I really always thought it was a bit like this magical thing. But I think the reality is, what I have learned is that you need to believe in yourself and you need to try and test. I mean, A/B testing is something I have heard about and learned about when I started my own PhD. And actually I was like, it's not so different from setting up an experiment, right? I have a hypothesis. I go out and I test something and I learn something from it. And this is how I adjust my direction. I think the mindset around it is a little bit different because you don't do like 100 tests to come to a conclusion. It's more directional. So you say, okay, I do this twice or 3 times, and then you see where it goes, and then you make a decision and move on. So this is something, maybe the whole method is something we can talk about another time, because maybe that's even interesting too. I have a very strong interest in hearing about it myself. But if we come back to the program, if someone sits there and says, I would love to be part of this program, which type of project or fields are best suited for your program? And are there specific areas within a digital technology that you prioritize at Cornell Tech?
Yeah, so Cornell Tech is very focused on digital technologies, or what people now are calling it AI. I tend to say we were doing AI before it was called AI. But anything that is very computationally intensive. You could have algorithms. We're very good at computer vision, machine learning, natural language processing, anything that have to do with predictive analytics, cybersecurity, anything that is really computational or algorithm intensive. Sometimes that comes with hardware. So it could be that there's a piece of hardware that is enabling us to get better data or process data in a better way, or that it takes multiple data streams and puts them in a one package. Okay, that's good. But at the end, what we really like are projects that have some computational component to it, and it's strong, it's data driven. It's all about data and computation for us. Agnostic in sectors. It could be any sector. I am of the mind that the weirder the better, and I love the weird projects, right? I always tend to say don't go for the safe one, go for the weird projects because I really like that. But we do tend to see a lot of projects in particular fields. In digital health, we see a lot of projects. I think just because in health, there's so many interesting applications of digital technologies, and you still see a lot that can be done with digital technologies. We see a lot in prop tech, so construction, real estate, even transportation, anything related to kind of the city, and rural cities, smaller cities, big cities. How do we take a look at that whole environment? And then cybersecurity, which is a really important topic right now, and media, anything to do with visual, video, audio. That's also very data driven right now. So agnostic in sector, we do see a lot of that, particularly in health. About half of what we do is health, but that's not by design. That is just because there's a lot of applications of that. As long as it's computationally intensive, we're good.
Okay, and if at which stage do PhDs come to you? Do they already have a formed startup, or is it okay to just come with an idea?
Yeah, so by design or programming is what I would call -1. You don't have to have anything, to be honest. The only thing that we obviously do want is for you to have finished your PhD. So the real only requirement for it is that you have finished all of the requirements that you need for your PhD, because we want you to come here and then spend 100% of your time building something. So this is not for something that you do in your last year of the PhD while you're doing your dissertation, your ABD, or you're doing your dissertation. You finish that, and then you come into our program, and then on full time. So that's as early as we take people. Sometimes when they come here, they still haven't received the title yet, but they have completed all the requirements. That's fine, right? So you have to receive everything 60 days after we hire you. So that's why it's a postdoctoral opportunity. Then other than that, if you go through our application process, the application process already helps you figuring out the things that we need. So fairly simple things that we need. One is your story. Just tell us your story, who you are, why do you want to be an entrepreneur, why does this interest you more than going and being a professor? And I just want people to be very honest with that. Maybe they tell me, I don't know. That's fine. That's a great answer. Maybe they tell me, I'm still not sure, whatever it is, but just tell us a story why you want to figure this out. And then in the other part of the application process, we go through a series of questions that help you start guiding this. So maybe you don't have anything right now. You don't have a company. A lot of the people that come to us never had a company. So let me actually change that. All of the postdocs that have come here have never built a company before. So they're always first-time entrepreneurs. And when they come to us, some of them, very few, actually have a company. A lot of them don't. You don't need to have a company. You don't need to have anything set. All that you need is to go through the application process and then answer the questions that we ask you on that application process, which are about what is the problem that you want to solve, right? Fairly simple. Why is it that the problem hasn't been solved, in your opinion? Why do you think it hasn't been solved? And why do you have, or what's your angle that is different? And why do you think that with your knowledge, you could solve that problem? And that's that founder market fit. Why is it that you are a very uniquely interested and uniquely set person to solve that problem? And is this a good market opportunity? And I think that those are the questions in general. There's a little bit more color to the questions as you're answering them, but that's basically it. What's a problem and why hasn't it been solved? Why do you think you could solve it in a better way? And then, is this an opportunity? Is this a market opportunity or not?
You said tell the story why you want to build this, why you want to solve this. And I think storytelling is such a powerful tool. And I think once you go down the route of becoming an entrepreneur, you will learn about it more, how you have to tell stories. So, but to summarize, basically, there is no business knowledge required. One can just come out of a PhD with an idea, with obviously the technical knowledge on how to solve the problem, and simply apply for the program.
Absolutely. We assume that you have zero business knowledge. Zero.
Okay.
That's what we want. Someone that has zero business knowledge, that is our sweet spot. You don't know anything about business. You've been in the lab for 5 years. That's fantastic.
Perfect. So this really brings me to my next question. Now someone enters in your program. So how do you support PhDs throughout this program to basically, if I understood correct, after 2 years, potentially go out and keep running this company independently?
Yes. So I would separate it into two parts. One is the operational part, and then the other part is the curriculum side of things. So in the operational part, how do we support you? We hire you. This is an appointment. So you will get an appointment as opposed to Cornell University with a salary of $80,000 per year. That salary comes with healthcare. So it comes with medical, dental, vision. It comes with retirement benefits. It's going to be a 2-year appointment, so it's not a lot, but still it comes with every single thing that an appointment at Cornell University gets. So that's the first thing that I think is very important. It is a paid position. We're paying you to figure this out. And there's not a lot of opportunities in the world, so someone would pay you to try to do a company. So just keep that in mind, right? I hadn't seen it before I saw this program. And then in addition to that $80,000 salary, we give you $1,000 cash for your company annually for 2 years so that you can buy a laptop, go and buy a GPU, go and buy some materials for what you need. Since most of these ones are software, they're not really CapEx intensive. So this $20,000 is money that they can use. And then about $50,000 worth of a lot of services, right? The curriculum that we give, the mentoring, office space, all of the amenities, I would say, of Cornell Tech and all of the things that come here, which are opportunities to network, opportunities to go to Silicon Valley, to pitch to VCs, opportunity to do demo days. So there's a whole programmatic aspect to it. But basically, operationally, it is you get money, you get paid to do this. That's one side. On the curriculum one, we have designed the curriculum that I specifically took a look at as the way to get entrepreneurs unstuck. So it's not really about doing another degree. We have a PhD. We don't need another degree, right? This is one too many. The idea is just to get you unstuck of things. So what are things that get you unstuck and get you in this process of understanding entrepreneurship? One is customer discovery. So we do put them to do customer discovery with the ICOR methodology that's very well known in the United States. In addition to that, we do a training called Where to Play. It's a market opportunity navigator by someone named Cheryl Tal Iskovich. She's a friend of the program. Fantastic. It's a little bit about strategic thinking. The next step to ICOR. Then the next step is decision making. How do you make decisions as an entrepreneur instead of a scientist? This is, I think, the part where a lot of scientists really struggle with, and his decisions as an entrepreneur is very different than decisions as a scientist. So decision making, leadership, how would you become a good leader, not to other people, but also to yourself? Entrepreneurs, we tend to be very bad to ourselves, very good to other people. How do you build great teams? Because we've worked alone for so many years. How do we build those great teams? And how do we talk about what we're doing in a storytelling fashion, what you were saying, instead of just really saying, let me tell you all about nanotechnology. I was that person, right? No, let's tell a story. Let's tell a story so other people can get it. So there's a curriculum, and it's a very structured curriculum, about 4 months, very intense curriculum. And then after that curriculum, there's a lot of mentoring. And while actually this curriculum is also happening, we have a lot of mentorship. So about 100 plus 100 mentors in our ecosystem. We match them. We try to rotate them, make sure that you have all of that. So it becomes basically the structured curriculum plus a lot of mentoring plus the space and guidance so that you can grow your company. And that's a summary of the program.
Amazing. I feel like even if you decide not to go on as an entrepreneur after these 2 years, but move in a non-academic position, or even if you stay in academia, you will have learned a lot. Because when I think about decision making, it's a transition whether you move into an industry position or whether you become an entrepreneur. It's great to understand decisions are made differently or much faster. And accustoming to this mindset will help you no matter where you go in the future. That's really great. But now I have a couple of practical questions. So I remember, Fernando, when we talked the first time, you mentioned that PhDs will come as a postdoc. Could you clarify what that means in terms of visa? Because I do think a lot of people here in Europe are listening and they might be, oh, is this for me too? Or is it only for US-based PhDs? And my second question is, could you elaborate? Because I remember the first time we talked, you said, and it's something that really, what I also loved about the program and what I think is extremely unique is that if you decide after 2 years not to build a company, on paper you have done a postdoc at Cornell University, which basically, I mean, you either I would say you either succeed with your company or you still win, because it's a no-brainer. For me, it was a no-brainer. I was like, this is amazing. There is zero, I mean, from my perspective, zero risk involved, right? You get to learn a lot. And if you decide it's not your path, you can still continue in academia, because on paper, you've done a postdoc at an incredible institution.
Yeah, exactly. So on your first question, it is very important for international entrepreneurs and everybody that is listening to this, extremely important. Yes, you can actually come to the US and come here to Cornell Tech and do a postdoc that is focusing on building a company. That's absolutely allowed. The way that we normally do it is with international people. If they're already in the US, they just finished their program and it's a STEM program, they usually use an OPT to get started, and we can transition them to a J1 or an O1 visa, depending on their situation. If they're outside of the US, we normally apply for a J1 or an O1 visa for them. Again, depending on their situation, different countries are a little bit different. Sometimes we can even apply for an H1B. The good thing is that the university, because it's a nonprofit, it's an academic institution, we don't have a cap for any of those, and we can just request it. Of course, there's some paperwork involved, and we are not USCIS, which are the immigration services. So we give you the paperwork and we hope that everything goes well. But we've had no issues. We've had more than half of our postdocs have been international, and there has been no issue at all with that. Now, with that being said, once you are here, I immediately put you in touch with an immigration lawyer. And with that immigration lawyer, we try to figure out your path to a green card. Because it makes no sense to me that I'm bringing you here to build a company. If you succeed and you want to build a company, you're going to need more than 2 years. And I can't then tell you after 2 years, go back, right? With a green card, then you would have the openness of then doing whatever you want to do. Some of them actually have gone back to the countries. Happens a lot with Israelis. Go back to Israel. But now you have both countries where you can build things. And that's really what we want you to have. It's about options, right? So immigration, we can absolutely do that and bring them with those options of visa. So that's not crazy. And I forgot the second question.
The second question was about the postdoc that you are actually on paper. So even if you decide not to continue the company for whatever reason, you will leave with a postdoc from Cornell University. Is that correct?
And on the second question that you asked, yes, that is exactly correct, that if you do not end up creating a company, you leave the program with a postdoc at Cornell University. We want you through that postdoc also to continue to publish, because you need to do it also as an entrepreneur. Hopefully, you're also going to create some patents, some IP. That is also going to help you in your CV. We pay for that work too. So you end up with a postdoc, probably with some publications, with a patent, and with a lot of knowledge that is going to help you if you want to continue to have an academic career. Of all of the postdocs that we've had now 55 postdocs. Only one came back to academia, but the CV looked very, very strong, right? Of all of the work that person did as he was with us in our program. So it's really a safe environment, to be honest. And you're right. On paper, it looks like you did a postdoc at a great university and you continue your academic career. Also now with all of this training, if you go to an interview, whether it's in industry or for an academic position, you will see how it's a whole different ballgame. Now you have a lot more training. Now you understand. This is also something that would help people get recruited. Of course, we want these people to be CEOs, right? So that's kind of our hopes and dreams of that. But if it doesn't happen, kind of the worst case scenario is not the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is a great case scenario. So it's a very low risk environment for people to try to do things. All that I ask them is that for 2 years, they do take on that role of being a CEO, and they try to figure out to make the company succeed 100%.
It resonates on so many levels, because I know often the PhDs, the fears around maybe trying to step into entrepreneurship. And I think this program just addresses all the concerns one may have about taking that step. And I think what you can get is someone who potentially builds something that is actually creating a lot of impact in the real world. So really, really amazing. So I would like to ask you for an example of a successful startup that originated from the program, if you had to pick one, just so we can kind of get an impression what startups have been created in the
I want to give you maybe
already.
more than one, because I think that the journey of the entrepreneur is usually seen as one path. And I think that that path normally is you go in, you build something new, you raise a lot of venture capital money, and you build a unicorn, right? So that's kind of the one path. And that is one path, but not the only path. So we definitely had a company like that. The company is called Nanit. It's a computer vision. It's a computer vision application, but for baby monitoring. It's a very popular product right now. But the story is great. Asaf came to us. He was a computer vision scientist working at Applied Materials. The people that know that company know that has nothing to do with babies, nothing to do with sleep, right? It's a semiconductor company. He came here and said, I know computer vision. I want to do something different. And he found a very interesting medical application in sleep, and particularly in babies. He built a monitor. He built a lot of computer vision algorithms. It's very data intensive, right? It's a monitor on a baby 24/7, gathering data, processing data. Again, computationally intensive. We love that. And after just a few years, after maybe 4 years, he was named Time Magazine's best invention of the year. The company has raised $75 million. It has a great CEO that used to be at a publicly traded company. It's a company that is growing quite well. Probably it'll become a unicorn pretty soon, and we hope so. So that's one story of a company that was built with a postdoc saying, I know computer vision, and I want to figure out what to do with it, right? That's it. He wasn't even in the same sector at all. So that's one story. But there's also some story like Biosha, for example. Biosha is a company with one of our postdocs, Nivo Hara. She said, I want to build the largest pathogen map in the world. I want to be able to do fast sequencing. This is algorithm, a lot of DNA data, a lot of computation, DNA data, fast sequencing, making sure that I have the largest map in the world. And whenever something comes that is new, I can immediately tell you if it's new or it's not. I can immediately recognize it, and it's just like in seconds. And that took a long time to build. That was in Europe, particularly hundreds of millions of dollars. It took a long time to build. She raised a little bit of money, venture capital, but then she got big contracts, and I guess she was there at the right time too, because when COVID hit, that became kind of the first line of defense for COVID, and now she got paid more than $10 million to build this pathogen map all over the world. So it's a company that has revenue, is going quite well, has some venture funding too, and is growing quite well. It's not I need to raise $100 million. It's a company that all of a sudden became very good business. So it's a good revenue, right? And like that, we have a lot of other examples of companies that, maybe didn't raise a lot of money. They just raised a little bit of money, but became very good businesses. And that's fine. We have some companies that raised a little bit of money and they're on their way there. And we have a lot of companies that also failed. And that's the path of the entrepreneur. It is not a single path at all. But I do want to give you, and hopefully you'll come to one of our information sessions where I can give you a little bit more flavor on the companies that we built. But we built companies in sleep analytics, in sequencing, in construction technology, in maintenance. We built even a musical algorithm company, which I'm fascinated by the concept still. So all of this, it's great stuff.
Cool. If you give me more info about the info session that you just mentioned, I would love to put it in the show notes, so whoever is interested can just come. And you know what I love about this the most is that I guess if Cornell Tech didn't exist, many of these startups would have never come to life. I really do love what you guys are doing. It's extremely impactful.
Yes, that's true. And I think the personalities of these entrepreneurs are great. Maybe they would have tried to figure out some other way, but definitely would have taken more time. That's the kind of the only thing. It would have taken a long time, or it wouldn't have happened at all. And for a lot of these applications and for a lot of these technologies, not being able to do it in a year or 2 years is just, you missed it. You missed the opportunity, right? The world moves really fast. So you need to be in a space that allows you to have that speed. And this is a message that I do want to give to a lot of PhDs and entrepreneurs here, is speed is of the essence. You cannot take 5 years to build a company. If the world changes so much in 5 years, that is just a different mentality if you want to build a company. And that's what we allow you to do, have that speed.
Yeah, very fast paced is something I had to accustom myself to. We don't have these very long projects of like 5 years, but we actually move in a very different pace, especially in the startup scene.
Yes,
because
exactly.
as you said, you cannot just sit and work on something for 5 years, then it's already outdated.
Yeah. And it's just because the world moves very fast.
Yeah,
It's not because of the technologies, because it's just the world changes so much. Our world 2 years ago was very, very different. 4 years ago, it was extremely different. And that's just the reality. You need to do something fast, whether it succeeds or it doesn't succeed. But that doesn't mean that you don't succeed as a person. And that's an important part. We also teach you in this methodology is that you go through the process, you go through the methodology, you figure out what you need to build, you build it. If it works, then that's great. You continue with that. If it doesn't, then you change and then you continue. That's the method. The method is just you change and you continue. You change and you continue. But you need to be in an environment that allows you to do that. I know that there's a lot of stigma in some environments about failing. We don't have that stigma. The first thing that we say when we come in is, I built 8 horrible companies. So I have no stigma about failing at all. This is the thing that I tell a lot of entrepreneurs. I have done projects where I spent $3 million and after 3 years, gotten really nothing interesting out of it. It sucks. It's a horrible feeling. And I don't want other people to have that feeling. So we start with the failures so that they can understand that it's okay to fail, but they need to already know all of that, what other people have gone through to minimize the risk of failure. But if it happens, then you just go with it and continue. That's it. That's part of the methodology.
Yeah, it's part of the process. And I think not everyone can succeed. Not every startup will be a unicorn also.
Not every startup will be a unicorn, and that doesn't mean that it's a bad startup. It's a great startup.
Exactly.
There's tons of really great startups that never became unicorn.
Exactly. Fernando, I could talk forever and ask you so many more questions, but we're actually at the end. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today and shedding light on this incredible opportunity offered by the Runway Startup Postdoc Program at Cornell Tech. I hope we could give an insight on what it would mean to be part of the program. If you're a recent PhD with a tech-driven idea, this program could be your start of an entrepreneurial career. I will put the links for the info session, but also for the program in the show notes. Check out the website. As always, if you found this episode helpful, please share it with your fellow researchers and leave us a review. It will help other PhDs to discover our podcast.
And I do want to... Yeah. Oh, sorry, Elena. Just
sorry,
last
Fernando,
comment
go.
here.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. Yeah. I should have given you some space.
One last comment that I wanted to do is I just want to tell everybody this program was possible because of something called the Jacobs Institute. It's a collaboration between Cornell University and the Technion in Israel. And the Jacobs Institute is funding that we receive from the Jacobs family, the founders of Qualcomm. So this is engineers themselves that want to see entrepreneurs succeed. So I give them a lot of credit for building this institute. And this institute joins 2 great universities helping people understand how to be entrepreneurs. So that's what you'll see in some of the application processes called the Jacobs Institute. It's located at Cornell Tech. All of the program is at Cornell, but the funding comes from this institute. And I think that that's very important. And as you were saying, please check out all of our information sessions, check out our program online. We have applications open. February 15th, we close applications. Please go to the website and apply. I would be extremely happy to see your application. And I read every single application. Every single application, I read it. So you will be seen. There's more people that read it too. But at least, Fernando, my compromise is I will read every single application that comes in.
Fantastic. Fernando, really, I think it's such a unique program. I hope we will see this at other universities too soon, hopefully. And I think you mentioned already that some are starting to do similar things. Kudos for what you're doing. And thank you so much for your time. And I hope we will reach some PhDs that haven't known about this opportunity before and now maybe feel like, yay, let's give it a go and apply. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elena.